Hi, I'm Kit Kowalski. I have worked in a product management capacity in a tech company for a number of years, and here are some of my insights about gender ideology from a product perspective. Now, over the last 20 years, gender ideology has matured from a niche adults only product into a product with a wholesome image suitable for everyone, even children. It has extended brand appeal into the youth demographic, and to reduce customer churn, a new market ecosystem has developed around trans children. Now, we can think of gender ideology as a startup unicorn business. That is, a business whose focus is on disrupting existing market dynamics, crushing competition, and aggressively acquiring and retaining customers. In product management, we say that the way to a customer's wallet is through their heart, their happiness, engagement, adoption, retention, and their task success. Now, I'll go through each of these individually. Firstly, their happiness. Now, when celebrities come out as trans, they often declare that I am finally who I am. By doing this, they're broadcasting an association between trans and happiness, fulfillment, and becoming. And of course, happy customers are brand ambassadors. They will refer a friend and they will give a positive review. Engagement. So this means a customer is interacting with branded products, activities, and concepts. This could be attending an LGBTIQ event, wearing branded merchandise such as rainbows or Wear It Purple, putting pronouns in their bio, experimenting with identity, or declaring themselves an ally to trans people. Adoption. This is where they actually buy into the brand. Now, adoption can be as simple as saying, I am trans, or it could be more serious, such as pursuing medical services and products such as hormones and surgery. And here I have a picture of facial feminization surgery. And there are also smaller purchases, such as specific underwear designed for trans people. All of this signals adoption. Retention. Do they continue to buy additional products and services as time goes by? So they might be purchasing additional products because they're very happy with the results, or it might mean that they haven't yet achieved the results they want and they're going to continue purchasing in order to pursue those results and that happiness. Measuring retention would be looking at who is maintaining a trans identity over time, and also are they committing to the next milestone in the adoption journey. And we do have a milestone defined for them. So the ideal journey for a trans child would be a social transition, followed by puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and a feminizing or masculinizing surgery. And then finally, when they are older, a genital surgery, and then they are fully retained. And their task success. So this is the hook. So are they achieving results promised to them by the brand? So here we have a still from the Starbucks What's Your Name campaign. A young woman is feeling ignored and undermined because all of her friends and family are calling her Gemma. She goes to Starbucks, she tells them her name is James, and they write it on the coffee cup for her. So she's in control, she's using her preferred name, and people are treating her the way that she wants to be treated. Now, this is actually a fun game that you can play because Starbucks will literally write anything on a coffee cup. So it's incredibly disingenuous to say that they're supporting trans identities here. However, it's still a win for their brand. Now, just looking at the traditional, the older market model for trans, transitioning was an adult decision. It was very niche and very few entry points were provided for new customers. So there is the male autogynephiles who would tend to transition in their 50s and 60s. Even though they might say they were always trans, they wait until much later. Then there are the homosexual transsexuals who would transition in their 20s and 30s as a way to deal with being gay. And much less studied, the female to male transsexuals who would still be making that choice as an adult, so their 20s and 30s. And the traditional market has a bit of an image problem. Firstly, there is a very high dollar cost to adopting a trans identity. So first of all, obviously there's the wigs and the shoes, and then hormones, and later the necessary surgeries. There is also a very high social cost. So if an older man wishes to transition, he might already have a family or a career that he potentially could lose. And there is a sexual connotation for autogynephilia, and it could be quite humiliating to be associated with. So here's a quote from Lily Wachowski, who is the co-creator of the Matrix franchise, saying, "The first images I saw that struck a chord with me were trans images in pornography." And this is really a core problem with the old brand. So by age 50, the customer journey is quite limited. They sort of make a declaration, they go on hormones, they have surgery, and that's it. The brand is very exclusive, and it's very hard to recruit new customers into a fetishized identity that is built for older rich men. So we have a market goal to acquire customers early and hold on to them and sell them smaller products more often. So if we can increase the number of entry points into the brand, we can diversify and make it not just for older men, but make the brand more accessible to children and teenagers. And remembering that a happy customer is a brand ambassador. So we have a quote here from Forbes that increasing customer retention rates by only 5% can dramatically increase profits. So its retention doesn't just equal repurchasing, but it also means referrals. So first things first is to clean up the brand images. So it's not just for older wealthy men anymore. We need to detach the brand identity from sexuality. And so here we have the cover of the book I Am Jazz, in which 6-year-old Jazz dances around and talks about how he enjoys unicorns and the colour pink and gymnastics and all that sort of thing, and that makes him a girl. So children as young as 2 can know who they are. Supposedly, they can achieve an authenticity by declaring themselves the opposite sex. So Jazz Jennings here demonstrates the ideal timeline we'd like the youth to adhere to. So Jazz is a model for early acquisition, adopting a trans identity at age 2, achieving all that early success, so getting to play with dolls, getting to wear pink, getting to wear princess, and then continuing to engage with the products and services to eventual sex reassignment genital surgery at age 20. Now you can see there are long gaps between the adoption milestones here for Jazz. So this is where we need something to reinforce the child's choice to adopt the trans identity. So Jazz's first engagement is at 2, but the next brand milestone is at 11, which is puberty blockers. Jazz's early engagement with the brand is very much controlled by the parents, and it's good to note that each successive adoption of a milestone further increases the likelihood of retention in future. So someone that goes on that has puberty blockers is much more likely to go on to cross-sex hormones than someone who hasn't. Now with Jazz, a social ecosystem was built around him, and he was guided and supported through his entire journey to achieve the sex reassignment surgery and full retention. So the parents created a book and came out and told the nation that Jazz was really a girl. There was a television series, and they put enormous pressure on him to become that brand ambassador. So to give glowing reviews about his trans status. Now we have a key milestone for the youth market, and that is entering puberty. The studies have shown that 80% of children who are given puberty blockers will be retained in the brand, and they'll go on to further treatments, and they will go on to be brand ambassadors for the trans brand. Versus 80 to 90% who will desist if they're not given blockers. Now, this is the population we're quite concerned about because they potentially detract from the brand. So they may have negative experiences and they may broadcast the negative experiences. So what we need to do is we need to, just like with Jazz Jennings, we need to create a little ecosystem around these children, and once they socially transition, we nurture them to the point where they can take the puberty blockers, and then we nurture them to the next brand milestone, which is the cross-sex hormones, and then to future surgeries. So what's a brand ecosystem? It's a collection of products and services that support brand retention. So looking at Apple, it's one of the most successful examples of a brand ecosystem. So in the beginning, the iPod was not the best MP3 player, but it was the one that was supported by, most successfully by a brand ecosystem. So you could get a range of exciting iPhone cases. You had iTunes that would sync your music seamlessly across all of your Apple devices. And then when the iPhone came out, it was also an MP3 player, and you could get apps. And even though some of the apps were free, they still contributed to this marketplace, and you became further and further entrenched in the Apple ecosystem. Everybody got a little slice of the pie there. So Apple wasn't the only one selling cases, and they weren't the ones who were selling music on the iTunes store. So other people were able to profit and to support that ecosystem. And the aim here was really retention and choking out any competition. So by keeping the customer in the ecosystem, even if they're not actively purchasing, you're still front of mind when they go to purchase again. So when you want a new laptop, you naturally want one that will sync with your iPod and all your other Apple devices. So I've identified that with gender ideology, there are a number of layers in the brand ecosystem that nurture children in their decision making. So from personal products to social transactions to a norm-setting umbrella that covers the child and covers the social context of the child. Now, every engagement with a trans product or service just further reinforces that brand. So personal products, these keep the customer focused on the brand. So every day I put on my binder. I do it because I am trans. Also, personal products can create a sense of luxury. So a binder might cost roughly $80, whereas a training bra might cost about $15. So it's a sense of I am worth it. I am investing in myself. Now, social transactions. Parents are encouraged to wave flags for trans children and not to question whether this is the right choice for them. School and workplace diversity training are often focused on allyship, again, supporting without questioning. And so a trans child will expect that people should automatically respect their choices regardless of context, and that they would find allies everywhere. So this is very attractive to someone who may be being bullied or being unsure of themselves. They can expect to have unconditional support. And then the umbrella. So this is businesses that support the trans narrative. So for example, we've got Starbucks, they have the video, and they also had a trans mermaid cookie that they sold, and they gave profits to Mermaids UK. Then we have social services under the ACON umbrella here in Australia, and also TV shows such as the Babysitters Club reboot and the ABC's First Day, which both feature a trans child character. These all serve to normalise the trans child experience and to give a social context for all of our social interactions and personal product use. And they also just create those cultural norms that lead us to expect the next milestone. And this is very important. So once we've purchased one product, we know that there's another one coming up that we're going to need to invest in soon. So a very important question here is, who is the customer? And it's important because the answer does change over time. So before puberty, the customer really is the parent. They are the one who observe the child playing with opposite sex toys, and they make a decision that the child is trans around age 2 to 4. Messages pitched at this stage focus on safety and security, doing the right thing to avoid harm for your child. And also there is the spectre of the suicide attempts. So parents of trans children are told that eventually their children will commit suicide if they don't support their transition. Now, after puberty, the customer is the child themselves. Messaging starts to focus more on the self, becoming who you really are, making your own choices, fitting in with your friends, and really piling on this concept of allyship. So again, if you're being bullied or if you're unsure of yourself, being trans is a way to gain that unconditional support from your peers. And most importantly, the messaging starts to include references to distancing from parents. So you'll start to see things like, if your parents don't support you, I will support you, or I'm your rainbow mom. So what to do if your parents don't let you wear a binder. And these are services that you can look at. So again, this is another threat for parents, that they have on one hand the suicide statistics, which indicate that a child will kill themselves unless you support their trans journey. And on the other, you have messaging to children that they should abandon parents who don't support their trans journey. And now we know who the customer is. Who is the seller? So there's no one seller in the trans marketplace. And this is quite important because it is what makes this a powerful consumer phenomenon. It's opening up the market to allow many parties to benefit by reinforcing that brand ecosystem together. There is a symbiotic relationship between umbrella organisations that normalise trans and justify their grant money, schools that support trans to fulfil their anti-bullying requirements, parents who support trans to demonstrate that they're loving their children fully, and underwear retailers that support trans so they can sell luxury products at a huge markup. And finally, there's a symbiotic relationship between them and the medical doctors who prescribe and inject puberty blockers, the pharmaceutical companies who manufacture puberty blockers and hormones, and by the surgeons and hospitals who perform unnecessary surgeries on healthy bodies. Not one of these parties will object while there is a profit to be made. And so, unfortunately, the seller really is everyone. Anyone can make money with an offering in the trans marketplace. And if you're going to be part of the solution, then you really have to not buy into this brand, not at any price. So thanks for listening, and please visit my blog, The Lady Kit Kowalski, at wordpress.com.